But you would hold to a form of dualism. So could you talk a little bit about like what dualism is and how this answers like the problem of consciousness and such?
Yes, I'm what's called a property or conscious dualist, because that means I think consciousness is immaterial, not physical, because there are things true of it that isn't true of anything physical, so they can't be the same thing, however much they depend on one another. And then I believe that there has to be a simple soul. Now, what I mean by a soul is a spiritual or immaterial substance or thing that has and unifies consciousness and animates the body. Let me say it again. A soul is an immaterial or spiritual substance or thing that has and unifies consciousness and animates the body. Now, there are a ton of reasons why I believe this, but one of them is free will. I believe we all exercise what's called libertarian freedom, that if I do something, I could have refrained and it was up to me. If that's true, I can't be a material object, because material objects are determined by the laws of nature and the previous state of the universe at the time of the event happening, or at least the probabilities or chances of the next event happening are fixed by the earlier, if we take quantum physics to be ontologically indeterminate. But that's both determinism in a real sense. Plus, it's what we might call, if we're material objects, say we're our brains or bodies, then you get part to whole determinism instead of through time determinism. And by part to whole, I mean, according to the physicalists, the behavior of ordinary sized objects is determined by the behavior of their microphysical parts. So it's bottom up determinism. And so only if we're something other than matter that is able to transcend matter and act by its own power could there be free will. Another thing is the unity of consciousness. Brains and bodies are divisible, but human persons aren't. They're all or nothing. We can gain functioning and lose it, but I have no idea what it means to say there is 80% of a person over there. Persons are either present or they're not present. They're not divisible. But the brain is. There is a syndrome called Dandy-Walker syndrome, where there are patients that have 10% of a brain. It's a little sheath, very thin sheath around the inside of the skull. The entire inside of their cranium is a sack of fluid. These people have 10% of a brain, but they function about 75 to 80% like normal people. Well, if I'm my brain, then I'm not a person. I'm a 10% person because I have 10% of a functioning brain. So you can talk about divisibility. You can talk about the fact that I can remain the same person, even though my body gains and loses parts, which means that it's constantly in flux. One other thing, disembodied existence in an afterlife, even if it's false, is surely metaphysically possible. If you watch a show on Dateline NBC about near-death experiences, and if skeptics watch that, just about every time they may say, you know, I think I'm skeptical about all this. I don't believe any of it's true, but I'm willing to let the evidence settle the case. I'll listen to the evidence that they give. I'm willing to listen. So I debated Michael Shermer and Victor Stenger and Keith Parsons. And on my side was Gary Habermas and Peter Kreeft. And we debated life after death. And we were talking about near-death experiences. And all of the atheists were willing to let the evidence settle the issue. And they all argued that life after, disembodied life after death is not does not happen because there's no good evidence to believe it. But now look at what they were doing, and look what people who watch Dateline NBC are doing. They're willing to admit that this might be true, that it's at least possibly true, And that's why they're willing to let the evidence settle it. Now, contrast that with the following. Suppose a show came on Dateline NBC about a group of archaeologists working in Montana had discovered 10 feet under the ground square circles. Nobody's going to watch that because they don't need to look at the evidence. They know ahead of time that they didn't because it's not even possible. Am I making sense to you?
Yeah.
Okay. So if I am the kind of thing that at least it's possible, maybe not actual, but possible, that I could survive in disembodied without my brain and body, I can't be my brain and body because there's something true of me. I have the property of being possibly disembodied, where my brain and body are not even possibly disembodied. I don't know what it means to say there is a body that's not a body or a brain not physical. So my brain and body are not possibly disembodiable. I am, so I can't be my brain and body. I must be something that could exist without matter. If I'm possibly disembodiable, that means I must be some kind of a unified soul. Remember, none of this assumes that that life after death is actually real. It simply assumes that it's metaphysically possible.